give it a try.
I know.
Cut them off.
I will.
Okay, my name's Terry Annenson, and I'm running for president of MNBC. I'd like to thank Phil and his crew for putting this thing together. It's a great venue. NVIT is just something great. It's the first time I've been here, so I'm very impressed. The reason I'm running for president is I believe I have the experience and qualifications and the passion to move our nation forward to a future we can all be proud of. My background includes planning, running multi-million-dollar shutdown projects reporting coal. I have been part of many United Steelworkers negotiating teams, and I've also prepared and presented arbitration cases in my job as grievance chairman at that time too. In the last 6 years, I've been on the board of directors for Community Futures. That's a small business bank, and in that position, I've read a lot of financial statements, business plans, and cash flow statements, market research papers, all the rest of that stuff. In the last 10 years, I've also owned a construction company in Elkford doing commercial and home renovations. So I have a bit of experience with running business as well. The job that I'm applying for here is something that has to do with business. The other part is definitely is culture and the actual Metis part of things. And I have been active in the Elk Valley community where I come from. I come from Elkford, British Columbia. Yeah, it's by Fernie, for people that don't know all the small towns in BC. I've been regional director in the Kootenays for 2 years prior to running for president against Bruce Dumont 4 years ago. I lost that election by 29 votes, as probably some of you remember. It was the closest election MNBC has had to date. Hopefully I do better this time. I also have attended many of the governing assemblies as either vice president for my community or as regional director. I've been to all the annual general meetings in the past 10 years. I was raised in the small town of Donalda, Alberta. My Metis ancestry goes back to Manitoba to the Cuthbert Grant family. It actually goes back not to Cuthbert Grant but to his sister. By promoting culture across British Columbia, one of the things I want to do is I have basically 3 main priorities, and I'd like to list those off. The main thing is to achieve financial stability for Métis Nation British Columbia. The way we need to do that is to conduct a thorough financial review of our current position, look at all the things we've done right in the past, and look at all the things we've done wrong, and build upon that. And we need to build upon that by involving as many of the communities as possible that have the expertise to advise in these situations. We also believe we need to promote culture and education across our province, and the main way we can do that is providing a document through MNBC that puts together the achievements and the contributions that all our ancestors made to the formation of Canada. That document should be made available to all the communities, and it would be something that would be able to be used to guide us when we're talking to the different levels of government, the school boards, the colleges, and all the rest of that stuff. Because one of the questions you always get asked when you go to do a talk any place is, well, who are the Métis, and what are they anyway? What is the definition of Métis? What makes a Métis? Why is it different than First Nations people? And a lot of times, we all make up our own answers to that stuff, but it'd be really nice to have a well-researched document that enables you to, use that as a bit of a research tool, And there's a young fellow there in the office right at the moment, Brodie Douglas, that is just absolutely fantastic in all the research that he does, and I'm sure he's already got that put together. He might not have it all right in book form, but it wouldn't take him long to do it, and that would be invaluable to everybody when they are going out and meeting with the public. We also need to heal the split between MNBC and the Federation. I mean, that's one thing that went on too long. I was there when it happened. You know, I was sitting around the table. I was taking the place of our president at the MNGA, and there was a committee of concerned Metis citizens that was formed because they didn't like what was happening. And there's a lot of people that sort of, you know, just didn't allow them to say anything. They dismissed them out of hand, and the Metis Federation was something that happened as a result of that. We should never, you know, disenfranchise people who don't agree with us. It's the people that agree with you all the time that you need to be careful of, because, you know, they're setting you up for something. The people that are talking to you and say, don't do that because it may be wrong, those are the people that you need to listen to. You need to listen to real close. And the other thing is, all these people that belong to the Metis Federation or been courted by the Metis Federation, they're our cousins, our brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, all the rest of this stuff, and they deserve to know that they're welcome to come back to MNBC at any time. And I think MNBC offers the best choice for Metis in British Columbia, and I think that we need to work together is what it comes down to. We need to be able to provide a united front, and if we don't do that, the government is going to, you know, take and split us apart and use one against the other, and we'll get nowhere. And with this Daniels case that's came out in the last while, we have an opportunity we haven't had for 150 years, and we need to take full advantage of that, and we need to take full advantage of it with the best people possible, and we need to do it quickly, because if we wait around, we're not going to be able to wait for very long, and all of a sudden we'll be waiting another 150 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. So next up, Miss Deborah. Hey, let me move this chair. Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. I don't usually speak very long. Can everyone hear me? Good. So, as you know, my name is Deb Canada, and I'm really happy to be here today. Before I begin, I would like to absolutely thank our elders who are here, and elders who are not here for the wisdom that they give us and for the support. Also, I would like to acknowledge and thank Phil Dumont and his board, who have done a great job here today. And of course, the other candidates that are. Did some people hear me? Yeah. Did you? Okay. So my husband can always hear me when I'm talking. I guess I talk a little louder with my husband. Pardon me? Pardon me? So there's so many things I have to say, and one of the most important things, I think, for me is the very fact that I'm so proud to be a Métis. And more than that, I'm very, very proud to be a Métis woman. And it truly would be an honor to be your president and to serve you. And I believe that I am totally, fully equipped to do that based on my background, my history, and my education. And when I talk about education, I don't necessarily mean education in terms of university degrees, because I was trained very well by my people and my family at home, and some of the elders at home and the community leaders at home that taught me about Métis protocols and about the way we do things and how to be respectful and how to conduct ourselves in a good way. So that is a foundation of education for me. I'm proud to say that I come from very humble beginnings, and I did manage to make it through the university system. The last time I said this, I got a heck from somebody here, but we're friends now, so I don't think she'll give me heck again. So I managed to get through the university system. I have a Bachelor of Social Work degree from the University of Manitoba. I have a Master's in Education and Leadership from Simon Fraser. I also have a master's from UBC, and I have a doctorate from UBC. And my dissertation, the writing that I wrote about, was Métis child welfare, because it's really, really important to me about our children being placed outside of our communities. So that was sort of a passion for me, that I somehow get that message out that it's not appropriate and it's not correct to take our children away from us, and then not for us not to have any contact with them. So I was born in Saskatchewan. We've lived here, my husband, I, my family. I have 2 little grandbabies for about 20 years. And I love BC. I love living here. I've met so many really inspirational people here. And the learning for me never stops. So in terms of my background, the work that I've done, I've always, since I was probably 15 years old, have been an advocate for our people. I've always been actively involved with the Métis, and I will continue to be involved with the Métis regardless of the outcome of this election. As John had mentioned, I do work here at NVIT, and part of the work that I do is to work with the Métis communities, and that will continue regardless of the outcome. But I've been a part of the Métis Women's Secretariat. I was on the Métis Health, Interior Health. I was also involved in the very first employment and training, our assets money that came into our region. I was one of the very first people on that board, and at that time it was not within the structure, rather it was in the communities. And so it was great because we had the power to make decisions right from the community level. And then of course there were changes, which sometimes change is good. It's not always a bad thing. So the involvement that I've had is very extensive. I've worked for probably 7 years with the Métis Commission for Children and Families as the provincial CEO. I also was on the commission board for a couple of years as their president, their provincial president. And you can tell that my heart really is with Métis children. I founded 2 agencies. The first one is in Kamloops, Métis Child and Family Services there. Myself and 2 other people started that agency. And then the other agency that I started was the White Buffalo Aboriginal Health Society. And so when I first started that little society, I had a little part-time worker and myself, and I was teaching at that time here at NVIT. And since then, it's grown into, when I left White Buffalo, we had, I think, 8 social workers there and a nurse. So it's a wonderful organization. The people were served with a lot of respect from White Buff. So in terms of, I guess, governance structures, part of the work that I have done in the past is I'm very familiar with policy. I'm very familiar with systems. I'm a policy, part of my work was as a policy analyst. I have absolutely no hesitation about the impact of legislation and policy on our people. And so when we think about it from a critical perspective, we have and continue to be legislated under Canadian policy that doesn't always work for our people. The legislation does not always work for our people, and we are required to abide by that policy. So that's one of the things that, as a president, that I think is really important, that we have to be able to have the ability and the strength to negotiate with the government around that kind of issue, around the policy and the legislation. That really, again, like I said, it's not developed for inclusion, rather it's developed for exclusion, and we've never had full openness to our participation. Which brings me to, of course, the Daniels court.
Hey, Deb, sorry if I may. I just I'll give you 30 seconds here to just wrap up. Sorry.
I'm not finished talking. I want to stay up here all night.
I know. Thanks. We're a couple minutes over.
Yes, I understand. So anyway, again, to wrap, I absolutely think that I could do an excellent job for you guys, and I would be honored if you would consider voting for me as the president of the BC, Métis Nation of BC. So I will end with that, and thank you so much.
Well, I brought my timer up here to make sure that Terry got 6:40, she got 7:05, so I'll go in between. But on a serious note, welcome elders, guests, honored. Phil, I want to thank you for inviting me here. Where are you, my friend? Phil, thank you for here and your group, and there's everybody here. And we're a nation, we're not a society, is what I like to talk. We are a nation, and remember that. I'm just not talking on the basis of society. My name is Dean Gladue. I come from a very strong Métis community. I'm 4 generations deep. I'm a Desjardins, I'm a Belcourt, I'm a Gladue, I'm a Lobacan, I'm a Savard, I'm an Andrews, and I'm a Kellio. Is my Métis heritage and family. It's been unimpeded for 300 years, my Métis heritage, my blood. I know who I am. We know the rebellion. I've been taught as a kid. I'm very proud wherever I walk. And that's very important, that you take who you are, but also fitting into both worlds. And that's what we Métis have an advantage of. Living in both worlds effectively. Living in the, as we call the First Nations world, and in the European world. That's who we are. We're in between. And that's what I explain to people who are the Métis. And a little about myself. I grew up in northeastern British Columbia, a little town called MNBC, and a traditional Métis community called Moccasin Flats. In that community, I was born, we were the last of the nomadic Cree. That's how I like to describe ourselves. We were still squatting land when I was born. My father and my mother came from Alberta to look for work at the dam, and we were still living in the bush when I was born. In fact, I just about became a 60 scoop in '66. My Métis family guarded the hospital bed that day, and the door, and they made sure that I wasn't taken out. So my mother was 17 and a very young mom. But you can see from the start, it was just 50 years of DNA blood. People have asked me a lot of questions, and I'm willing to take on anything. The big thing about me is I believe, where my proven leadership is the fact that I have 26 years of RCMP. And in that time of being in the police department, I've learned a lot about myself, about our people, but also the main thing about how to be strong and what to do. And my strength is the power of negotiation. And negotiation is going to be so critical. And also somebody who can build team, who can bring people together. And I believe every candidate here are strong as heck. They've got great things to offer. And one thing that I would like to do is we got to build team. That's what we have to do. You need a GM. And when I'm using the hockey term, you need a GM to bring in a good coach and a good coaching staff and a great team to win the Stanley Cup. So with our Métis rights, we need somebody at the front who is not afraid to get into the communities, talk to people, but also gets it from a broad perspective. Not just from a small perspective of the community, but I've seen it. The Olympics, I was very involved at an international level at the security. I was at ground zero. Big part of my responsibility was being the right-hand man to the top person. And when international issues were happening, we were the go-to people. I was a part of that. But what I mean by that was in Whistler at ground zero. I really took that as an incredible experience dealing with international communities and international athletes and world athletes. But as well, when you see things of our accomplishments, somebody asked me, you don't have enough board experience. I have lots of board experience. I've done a lot of boards in communities. I'm a very advocate for youth. If you go online to www.metforchange.ca, read our bios. Don't listen to what anybody else to say. That's the beauty of our Métis people. We come from a community of people that we design our own future, people. We have to be the creators of who we are. We cannot wait, no Kiam, way Kiam anymore. We have to be a part of the success of Canada. 131 years it took us to get to this point from the rebellion. Now what are we going to do for the next 131 years? I want our children to say, we worked hard, we as a team. Anybody who uses the word more than I in 10 times in a speech, avoid them, because they're an I person. Be a team person. Somebody who comes here and says, how can we work together? We have a lot of successful people in the Métis community. We need somebody to come to bring the educators, the justice, the harvesting. I'm also a harvester. I hunt, and I believe in our rights. That's huge. I used to sneak around the bush with my grandpa, my musu, growing up, just to get a moose. And then so we wouldn't get caught. I understand. I was in the ground trenches. And being in the police for 26 years, I was faced with a lot of things. Because you know what? It was a very interesting world, and somebody said to me, what's the most dangerous thing you've ever encountered in your life? Tell me what's the most dangerous thing. Growing up with 50 Métis aunties. That was the most dangerous thing. Because you know what? That's made me a better man, because it was my aunties, especially my aunties, my uncles, that helped me to form who I was. I grew up in a street with my grandparents across the street from each other. With 10 uncles and aunts in one family and 12 on the other side, all in the same community. So you know who you are, and that's the key. Education, you can get it up to your yin-yangs. I have a PhD. I'm a postal digger as well. And that's important because I know what it means to work hard and the ground roots. And it's grassroots that we have to go to. And get somebody who's in leadership that has passion for its culture and its people. That's who we need to lead this nation. Not to go to war. War is wrong. But what I'm saying is, the sword, it is now the pen is mightier than the sword. And somebody said to me, Dean, you can sell anything to anybody. Absolutely. After 26 years, I was going to go into sales and marketing. I decided this was where I needed to be. Because I saw something, and it was through a vision, and my elders, and a dream. So, thank you very much.
I wish to thank everyone here that came to this gathering. It is nice to see the people, and I wish to thank Phil Dumont for the invite. My name is Annette Maurice. I'm currently the Vice President of Métis Nation BC. I was born in northwestern Saskatchewan. I won't tell you how many years ago, but I'm a little over 50 years old. I've traveled the life of hard knocks. I've experienced a lot of trauma. I've experienced a lot of depression. I've experienced a lot of racism, prejudice, and injustice. As opposed to my friend, Dean, I was a court worker for 27 years. The RCMP called me one day and said, we have a murdered woman in a body bag. Would you come and identify her? I had the gruesome responsibility to go and identify a woman that I knew. I have seen and experienced back-to-back murder trials, murder inquiries, and I have been instrumental in developing the circuit court for 2 northern BC reserves, because the people used to pick up offenses when they could not afford to come to the courts in Mackenzie. So I, along with some lawyers, advocated strongly to the provinces, to the feds, to the provincials, to the local governments, and we implemented a policy and we established circuit courts in 2 reserves, so that I knew for sure that I was serving my people. I grew up in northwestern Saskatchewan to a very poor community. My kokum, my grandmother, was a midwife. Between my 2 maternal grandmothers, they had delivered 1,000 babies. They walked and walked. The mode of transportation was not a car. It was not a train. It was walking. And my kokums did that. They traveled from community to community to serve. And you know what? I picked up that same DNA. I am a server. I believe in serving my people, from the young to the eldest to the disability. I have a passion for the disabled people because I have experienced firsthand the injustices served to our people. I worked in the court system where I held trials. I'm not a lawyer, but I'll be darned if I was intimidated by lawyers or judges. I can stand up to anybody. I'm a fearless Métis. When I have an issue to address, I will address it, and I don't back down from my convictions. I'm here to serve people, and I've been the Vice President of Métis Nation BC since 2012, and my heart has been commitment. It's been a tough 4 years, but I tell you what, I'm not a quitter. And I will not quit to serve my people, because I was raised to have that servant mentality, and I will not quit. And again, I say it's from the youth to the elders. And my father, when I was young, and I'm going to speak in Cree, he was a servant of the Métis. And my mother used to ask my dad in our language, Jacob, why are you doing this? Because we are hated in our community. And my father would say, because I have been asked to represent my people. And you know what? I've been called a watered-down Indian, but I'll be darned if I'm going to back up. I'm Métis, and I'll stay a Métis, and I'm here to serve you. So remember my name on the ballot. Thank you.
I have questions. Don't you worry. Uh-oh. I had questions. No, mine were better. All right. Okay. Well, it's okay. I remember them anyways. So we have 20... Let me just take a quick look here. We have 25 minutes left. There was 4 good questions that the presidents of the Region 3 had wanted me to ask. I'm going to start with the 2 most, the most voted on, and then if I have time, I'll go on to the 3rd. So the first one is, can you tell us about a time that you were challenged ethically? And I'll just pass this down.
What was that last one? Ethically. Ethically. Oh, okay.
Let's start this way then.
Sure.
I already started first last time.
All right.
Give them time to think of an answer.
Yeah, I don't have one.
Well, 26 years of policing every day. I think the most important part was standing up for who I was. An example was early in my career, day 3 in fact, I was in Regina, and the corporal said, and we were doing the tour as a young recruit, you got to picture this, and I'm going to picture this. I was a little slimmer than I was today. It's probably more of Vince's fit there. I wish. But at that time, with a young recruit, a young kid who's 22 years old, just come off the community, I played a lot of hockey, I was at school, I was trying to live my life. I'm a young dad, a 1-year-old boy at home now. I remember thinking what the corporal said. He says, yep, you people, for the next 26 months, we own you. We're going to tell you who you are. We're going to tell you where to go. We're going to tell you where to sleep. We're going to tell you where to blah, 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 everything. You name it. It was paramilitary training. You know what? It really teaches you strong ethics, that. But when we went to day 3, I challenged the corporal. And the question was, I said, what's that corner over there? What's that rope? He said, we hung a traitor with that rope. His name was Louis Riel, and I'm telling you, it was like somebody slapped me in the head, punched me hard and fast. And I said to him, excuse me, I said, but Louis Riel is a hero. How could you call him a traitor? I didn't realize the history of the RCMP as much as I did with them. And he goes, young man, you Métis have no rights. You're nobody here. Remember that. And I looked at him and I said, we have all the rights in the world. We're a proud nation, and we are who we are for a reason. I almost quit that night. I phoned my wife at the time, my mom. I said, I'm ready to go home. This is not for me. But you know what? I survived it. I looked at it, but I stood up, but I paid the price. But I stood up for what was right. And that was what happened in Depot. And at the end of the day, him and I never saw eye to eye. But at the end of the day, something like that made me stronger and to stand up for my rights and stand up for who I believe. Thanks.
I believe my seed towards fairness and justice came when I was in my early 20s. I went home to Saskatchewan and I had a brother who was 14 years old. And when I approached my parents' house, I saw an RCMP sergeant. I'm not picking on your RCMP, you're an ex. But anyway.
Ex-husband?
And I saw an RCMP van by my parents' house, and my 14-year-old brother was standing in our porch. Back then we had porches. And his skinny arms, we were not rich, we were kind of, skinny. We had a lot of macaroni and fried potatoes and tomato soup and things like that. But I saw my 14-year-old's arm resting, and he was absolutely shaking. And I approached them and I said, what is going on here to the RCMP? And he said, oh, so-and-so skiff got stolen. A Caucasian, a white man's skiff got stolen. And they came and blamed my brother. And I asked him, even though I was inexperienced, but I was already vocal, I said, do you have any evidence as to who took the skiff? And I said, it was probably rotten to begin with. And I said, if he was native, would you be going through the same extent, going from house to house? He said, no, this is the first house we're attending. Meanwhile, my little brother's hand is just shaking, and that's when the seed was planted into my heart. I thought, I'll be darned if I'm going to stand back and watch my people being treated like this. Fast forward, they discovered that the skiff had been blown away by the wind, and yes, it was a rotten skiff. But that's when something happened to my heart, and it stayed with me all these years. I'm a lot for fairness and justice, and it doesn't matter to what length I go through. I will be verbal, and I will be vocal. Thank you.
Well, I think ethics is a really important thing, and of course, as a social worker and someone that has worked extensively with people, I've also worked in the justice system with women in jail, and ethically for me, I would, I've made so many observations and have been a part of so many organizations and individuals. Part of it is the jail system. And I recall when I worked in the Portage la Prairie Women's Jail, listening to this over the couple of years I've been there. They had invited me to sit with them, the guards, and the deputy warden, that I could sit with them in their coffee room. And so I thought, that's great. So I'm sitting there in the coffee room, and they're going on, and the longer I sat there and the more they invited me in, the more comfortable they became with me. And then they were so comfortable with me that they started to make comments. And comments about, well, if that one acts up, we'll just throw her in the hole, and that one lies, and we're just, they would talk about the punishment that they would give her, will take away her visitation and those kind of things. So I went back to I was very, very young then, just a young little social worker. So I went back to my agency, and I thought, that's not right. It's not right to treat people like that. So I sat down with the executive director at that time and explained to her what happened. And so then they called Correction Services Canada. And so there's this huge meeting that took place. And of course I was a nervous wreck because I had to tell them, I was the one that told. And then there's this other thing about, not, like to, mind your own business. As a child I was taught, my father would teach us, unless somebody's being hurt, don't poke into other people's business. So of course here I am thinking, I have to tell, and I did. And so to make a long story short, what happened with that is that they kicked me out of the coffee room. They were reprimanded for the staff for treating and making those kind of comments about the women, but I was kicked out of the coffee room, and so I would go to the jail and I would sit there out in the hallway to wait to be taken into the cells to my little office there to see the women. And a warden who was a Metis came to me and he said to me, Deb, he said that I want to tell you that I'm really happy that you did what you did, because there is a thing about fairness, and this is not how it should be. The women were already punished when they were sentenced. And I said, you're not mad at me? And he said, no, I'm very happy that you did that. And he said, so it makes it a better place for the women here. So I guess ethically that, there's that part of me too, that believes that in terms of doing the right thing, because as Métis people, that's what we're taught. The protocols about doing the right thing. And of course, in professional terminology, you can call it ethics. But as a half-breed from the north end of Winnipeg, it was called, my father would tell us to do the right thing. So that's what I did.
Yeah, Deb has this right, actually. It's basically doing what's right. My parents taught me to do what's right from an early age, and I took that to heart. Probably the last time I had to be a little bit challenged as far as something ethically, it was when I was on the board of directors for MNBC. We had a discussion about something, I don't even remember what it is, and it probably wouldn't be ethical to, tell everybody what it is, but I didn't agree with it. What they were planning to do, I thought was wrong. And, we argued back and forth, and finally it came to a vote, and, I got voted down on this year particular deal. And we went back into it was just before the MNGA, and Mr. Dumont, our president at the time, he got up and he said, the board has unanimously decided to do this. And I had to get up and I had to walk over to Mr. Dumont and whisper in his ear that no, it wasn't unanimous. And that was one of the hardest things I ever did, because he was the powerful leader of our nation at the time, and he didn't like the fact that I said this, but it was the truth and it had to be known that it wasn't unanimous. And that was one of my hardest times recently that's happened. There's been many others. I mean, everybody can talk about lots of things that they did when they were young, when they got into trouble, stealing cookies or whatever it is. But those aren't the things that really matter. The things when you stand up and be counted, when everybody else is telling you that what you're doing is wrong, and you have the deep conviction that you're right, you need to stand up and you need to speak for your people. You don't listen to the crowd. You vote your conviction and you stick with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a piece. We've been doing fairly good here. Is just a big one that came from the communities through the presidents, and something that I think most of you touched on. How do you see yourselves helping the communities, the grassroots, with funding, staffing, events, making sure that the communities are being taken care of and being helped, as well as regional directors with funding, so that they can get more community time? So the big question, like I say, is funding for grassroots and funding for regional directors so that the communities can connect. So we'll start on this side.
Okay, need to change gears here, something I was really passionate about before. Fundings for the community is one of the core things that we need to have happen. If we don't fund the communities, that balance, that charter agreement that everybody has signed, or all the communities have signed, that gets out of balance, and it's been out of balance for the last 10 years. Funding for the communities has been something that hasn't been there. I don't know the last time the people in this community got funding from MNBC or support from MNBC to do much of anything. We've pretty much been on our own in the communities. And when that happens, I liken it to a marriage where one partner gets all the benefits, the other partner gives all the support, and those marriages sort of end up in divorce court. And I wouldn't like to see that with our Métis Nation. We need to rebuild and rewrite the charter agreements so they're fair for everybody, and the roles and responsibilities for each partner are equal and fair for everybody. MNBC doesn't have the right to take our membership and use that to get funding for a bigger office in downtown Vancouver. We need to provide core funding. That's one of the things that I would definitely look for in negotiations with the federal government. If we get into negotiations based on this Daniels case, I would look for core funding from MNBC that would allow regional directors to get out, and the presidents have to get out to their communities as well. So let's not leave them out as well. Thank you.
So I guess if you look at my part of my platform, it definitely is about the funding, and that for too many years in the province of British Columbia here, there has been nothing for the locals, absolutely nothing. The locals that do have offices are the ones that have the ability to fundraise, and the majority don't have. So one of the goals that I have is that I am going to negotiate with both the federal and the provincial government. I mean, it does make a huge difference around the Daniels case that states, that Canada now has a responsibility to us, the Métis people. And I think that it's time that they stood up to that responsibility. And there's, I think, 17 recommendations that was made in the Isaac report. But out of the 17, I mean, there's one piece of it that talks about the funding, and the rest talks about all the other rights that we have and about reconciliation with Canada for us Métis. So again, I will just say, due to shortage of time, that you can trust that I am a good negotiator, I'm a planner, and I'm an analyst, and I will get that money from the federal government and from the provincial government. I've done it before, I've built agencies, and I will do it again. Thank you.
For too long, the Métis people have been in a begging mode. We accept what's thrown at us, and I would like to thank the staff with MNBC I would like to thank the Director for Health, who has worked tirelessly to try and get money so that it could flow down into the communities. That has been a passion of mine, to see and enable the communities to be able to function. It hurts my heart when I see them, when I hear them say, we have to close our office, we have no money to pay for the rent. Even though it may be a minimal rent, they have no money. And I'm wondering, something is wrong with this picture. Something is definitely wrong with this picture. I'm a hard negotiator, and I would negotiate hard and tough to make sure there's adequate funding, to make sure our communities are alive and thriving, and that we will get away from that begging mode. The fiduciary duty relies upon the federal government to realize that we have inherent rights. Let's work collectively, corporately, to ensure that we are heard. Give us the voice. You people sitting here and the people in British Columbia, give us the voice, and you will see what we can do as your leaders. Thank you.
You know, a really good team leader takes the best of everybody, goes to best practices. We use that to move forward. If you look what's happening with the treaties, with the First Nations, their system is set up. We can utilize that system. But first 30 days, I have a goal to meet Christy Clark and Milton, who's her I believe it is her, the Métis minister responsible for Métis. So that's important that we negotiate. We go to the federal government as well as the provincial government on my part, set meetings with them, tell them what we need, get into negotiations of a better system to be able to feed our people and to show it. Because you know what? I'm going out there, I've been traveling, I've been campaigning since May 1st, and I've gone to communities such as Vince, where they're doing fundraising, cookie draws, 50-50, so forth. We're not a society, we're a nation. You know, the hockey club does that. The basketball club does that to raise money. We're a nation, and we need to get out there and bring good people in. If I have the mentality, I'm going to do it all, we're going to lose already at the beginning. I can do all this. That's what I'm saying is about bringing a strong administration team, which we have in the front office. Now bringing a strong political team together, a board. That's why it's important that you have a board that works together, people. Because then the best minds are put together, and then we can succeed. And I've never, ever accomplished a goal without a good team. And that's important, because I don't have all the answers, nor do you. And if I had all the answers, I'd be writing a book, traveling the world, and showing people how to run an effective government through funding. Because it's about grant writers, having effective people on your team. And that's why, if you notice, with my team, I've built a strong team to work with me already. I've been approaching them. I've been working on this since November 4th, when Justin Trudeau got sworn in. That's when I committed to this game. And I know that I've got a good team, and I put a good team together. And it's important that you vote for my team so that we can stay together. And a board but if not, I'm willing as the president to bring them all in, and we've got to work together. But it's good to go in with the team and not by yourself, because that's how we'll get thrown under the bus.
Okay, so
I put 32 years into politics. Métis politics is something else all in itself. But my question to you, to the leader, the future leader of MNBC, what are you going to do for the presidents out here, for the communities? You know, I've heard everything that's been said, but nobody has said, I promised these people, a lot of them in this room, that fellow right there, committed to him in 2000, that the presidents of the communities would be looked after. MNBC has never done that. MNBC has not held their end up. So I'm saying to you, who's ever elected, and that goes for the board of directors, for the vice president, and for the president, if you don't work as a team, MNBC won't go 2 more steps forward than they are right now. So what are you going to do, and it could be in the parking lot, for our communities? That's my question to you. And if you don't do that, your term will be shorter than a cup of coffee.
All right, you guys got 20 seconds. 10 words. What are you gonna do?
Let's all have a meeting. I'll bring you all in and we'll brainstorm what we can do to better it. You guys have the answers and they're within you, the presidents. That's what I would do first of all.
Article 55 of our Constitution, communities shall be the basic unit of the Métis government. We have to get input from the grassroots. We have to hear them, we have to listen to them, we have to hear them, and we have to act. Again, negotiate and work tirelessly to see them thrive. None of this cookie stuff, none of this basket weaving, or, I mean, no offense, but the fundraising, it has to go broader than that. And I thank you, Mr. Hodgson, for bringing this up, because that is a passion. It goes together with seeing our locals thrive. The presidents put in a lot of free time, volunteer work. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the question, Dave. And I mean, who would know better than you, being that you were on MNBC's board for so long? So I appreciate the question. I just want to say that in other forms and in my own self, I absolutely without question know that a leader stands alone unless he stands under the rule of his people. And so the presidents are responsible for their people in the communities and work with the people. And I will make a promise right now that I will be working with the presidents. I have always worked with the presidents and continue to do that in post-secondary, but I'll extend it out to working with the presidents who really are our leaders. Governance structure is made by our leadership in the communities and by the people.
Yeah, other people here have talked about building teams and stuff like that. As far as I'm concerned, you're the people that build the team. You're the ones that elect your presidents. You're the ones that elect the board of directors, the vice president, the president. You're the ones that build the team. And anybody that's not going to work with the team that you build is not fit to be leading this nation. So it's self-evident to me that we have to work with the presidents because they're the ones that tell us what the average citizen wants and how they want it and what they want us to do and how we conduct ourselves and all the rest of the things that go along with good governance. So yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. You gave me an opportunity here I didn't think I was going to get. Thanks.
That's such a big voice, Dave.